We've all been there. You meet someone new or just someone you see occasionally, and the conversation starts with the classic hello, followed by the usual questions. What do you do? Which team do you work with? And then comes the dreaded silence. That uncomfortable moment when both parties desperately search for something to say, but nothing comes to mind. I've experienced this type of situation countless times, not just in professional settings, but also in various social contexts, like trying to reconnect with a distant cousin at a wedding after years of not seeing each other, or striking up a conversation with a stranger in a crowded bar. But what if it were possible to talk to anyone without ever running out of things to say? What if there were a way to make every interaction lighter, more authentic, and more meaningful? The truth is, we all face some level of social anxiety to a greater or lesser degree. Some people seem to navigate any conversation effortlessly, while others feel trapped, stuck, afraid of making mistakes or appearing uninteresting. What's important to understand is that this is not a flaw, it's part of the human condition. And furthermore, it is possible to improve. I am proof of that. I've gone through a long journey of social evolution, and it didn't involve ready-made tricks or memorized phrases. Over time, I developed 3 practical methods that have helped me connect better with others and feel less out of place, at least most of the time. At first, I blamed myself for being too shy, insecure, or even a bit socially inhibited, but something made me rethink everything. I realized that with close friends, I was the exact opposite, spontaneous, fluent, at ease. This led me to an essential question. What changes within us from one situation to another? What makes a conversation with a friend so easy, while exchanging words with a stranger feels so difficult? Can we learn to converse lightly, even without intimacy? How do we overcome the silence barrier and turn any interaction into something natural and enjoyable? My discovery was that the answer begins within us. For a long time, I lived with the puzzling feeling of carrying completely opposite personalities within me. It was as if 2 distinct versions were coexisting in silence, one more introspective, observing the world quietly, and another wanting to express itself, but not knowing how. I even questioned whether this indicated an identity problem or a lack of self-confidence. However, with time and maturity, I realized that being naturally introverted is not a flaw nor an insurmountable obstacle. The real difficulty lay in my ability to communicate lightly, spontaneously, and engagingly, especially in more informal social contexts. It was then that I understood something essential. My challenge was not who I was, but rather what I had not yet learned. Conversing, much like playing an instrument or writing poetry, is a skill, and every skill can be developed with practice, patience, and intention. Learning to converse is not just about talking for the sake of talking. It's about creating genuine bridges with others, listening attentively, and interacting with empathy. Over the years, I have honed this competence through trial and error, carefully observing how good communicators behave, ask questions, and maintain the flow of conversation. In this process, I discovered something valuable. There are only 3 fundamentals to conversing well with anyone and never running out of topics: attention, curiosity, and intention. These 3 pillars, when combined, transform even the simplest encounters into moments of true connection. For example, if someone mentions, "I went golfing this weekend," you could simply respond with, "Oh, that's cool." Or you could turn that comment into a doorway for dialogue by asking, "Where do you usually play? How long have you been practicing?" Or, "Do you participate in tournaments?" The difference between a superficial conversation and a meaningful one lies in the choice to explore, and that choice is always within our reach. These questions aren't just tactics to prolong a conversation. They are genuine demonstrations of interest and attention. By asking questions with intention and listening attentively, you allow the other person to feel truly heard, respected, and valued. It is in this often subtle gesture that meaningful connections are born. The conversation then stops being a social obligation and transforms into a moment of real and enriching exchange. Strong relationships are built this way, with sincere curiosity, active empathy, and an authentic desire to understand the other. Perhaps you really don't care about golf, and that's okay. The point has never been the sport itself, but rather the gesture of showing interest in what matters to the other person. Even if the topic isn't among your favorites, by demonstrating curiosity and respect, you send a powerful message. What matters to you also matters to me, because you matter to me. This type of attitude is transformative. It not only avoids uncomfortable silences or awkward pauses, but also provides a subtle yet effective way to guide the direction of the conversation. After all, every good conversation is built as a flow between questions and answers, and those who ask the right questions typically steer the depth of the dialogue. However, it's not enough just to know what to ask. You must know how to listen and to truly listen. A common mistake is thinking that improving communication means talking more or better. But like many paradoxes of life, the key is actually the opposite, listening more, with presence and intention. Active listening goes far beyond physical silence. It requires mental quietness, emotional availability, and full attention. It's not about waiting your turn to speak. It's about being open to understanding the other person's world. When we mentally interrupt ourselves to prepare responses, we miss precious nuances, compromising the authenticity of the exchange. On the other hand, when we listen with heart and mind, we can grasp what lies beneath the surface. Thus, we formulate more relevant, deeper and human questions, promoting richer, more natural and transformative conversations. As Stephen R. Covey said, most people do not listen with the intent to understand, they listen with the intent to reply. Oh, don't fall into that trap. Become someone who listens to understand, not to rebut, to win, or to impress. By doing so, you not only enhance your communication, but also build bridges of trust, strengthen bonds, and become a more significant presence in people's lives. For those who have lived this, you know the true brightness of human interaction, the cherry on top in interpersonal relationships, emerges when we find common ground with another person. It's as if, suddenly, an invisible bridge is built between two souls. There is an almost magical and immediate connection when we realize that someone shares a similar background, a comparable experience, or even a simple common interest. Sometimes this bond is evident and spontaneous, like when both people enjoy the same sports, movies, books, or music style. Other times it is more hidden, camouflaged under layers of shyness, formality, or distraction, and only surfaces with attentive listening, genuine curiosity, and the right questions. With patience, empathy, and sensitivity, it is almost always possible to find this bridge even among seemingly very different people, and upon identifying it, lead the conversation toward that shared territory naturally. You will notice that, like magic, the dialogue begins to flow with ease, becoming more spontaneous, profound, and engaging. There's a shift in tone, rhythm, and energy. The conversation stops being merely an exchange of words and transforms into a true encounter. However, it is essential to understand that this doesn't always happen. There will be moments when the conversation stalls and uncomfortable silences may arise. In those cases, don't fear the silence. On the contrary, learn to welcome it calmly, recognizing that it too is part of the dialogue. Silence often is not empty, it's fertile. It can be a necessary pause, a breath deepening the connection, inviting reflection, or simply allowing the other person to feel more at ease. By applying these three principles, seeking common ground, cultivating active listening, and knowing how to handle silence, you will be able to communicate with almost anyone. And remember, the true secret of effective communication lies not only in well-chosen words, but in the sincere willingness to open up, be vulnerable, and create a safe space where the other person can also reveal themselves fully.